Raja Uvacha.
Raja Uvacha.
Aho.
Aho.
Vayam.
Vayam.
Dhanyutamaha.
Dhanyatamaha.
Nripanam.
Nripanam.
Mahattama.
Mahattama.
Anugrahaniya Shilaha.
Anugrahaniya Shilaha.
Rangyam.
Ramyam.
Kulam. Brahmana Pada. Shochat.
Shochat.
Durat.
Durat.
Visrishtam.
Visrishtam.
Bata.
Bata.
Garhya.
Garya.
Karma.
Karma.
Rajovacha.
Rajovacha.
Aho vayam dhanyatama nripanam.
Aho vayam dhanyatama nripanam.
Mahattamanugrahaniya shilaha.
Mahattamanugrahaniya shilaha.
Ragyam kulam brahmana padashochad.
Ragyam kulam brahmana padashochad.
Durad visrishtam patagarhya karma.
Visrishtam batagarya karma.
Rajovacha. Aho vayam dhanyatama nripanam. Mahattamanugrahaniya shilaha. Ragyam kulam brahmana padashochad. Durad visrishtam patagarhya karma. Rajovacha. Aho vayam dhanyatama nripanam. Mahattamanugrahaniya shilaha. Ragyam kulam brahmana padashochad. Durad visrishtam bhatagarya karma.
Rajovacha.
Rajovacha.
Aho vayam dhanyatama nripanam.
Aho vayam dhanyatama nripanam.
Mahattamanugrahaniya shilaha.
Mahattamanugrahaniya shilaha.
Ragyam kulam brahmana padashochad.
Ragyam kulam brahmana padashochad.
Duradvishishtam bala bhatagarya karma.
Durad visrishtam bhatagarya karma.
Rajovacha. Aho vayam dhanyatama nripanam. Mahattamanugrahaniya shila. Ragyam kulam brahmana padashochad. Durat visrishtam bhatagarya karma.
Rajovacha. Aho vayam dhanyatama nripanam. Mahattama manugrahaniya shila. Ragyam kulam brahmana padashochad. Durad visrishtam bhatagarya karma. Rajovacha. Aho vayam
nirpanam Mahatamunugrahanyashilaha Nagyam kulam brahmana padashocha Durad vishishtam bhattagarya karma
Rajavacha Ahovayam Danyatamanapanam Mahatamanugrahaniya Shilaha Yagyam Kulam Brahmana Padashochan Durad Vishtam Bhattagarya Karma
Rajavacha Ahovayam Dayanatam Nirpanam Mahatamanugrahaniya Shilaha Rajnam Kulam Brahmana Padasochad Durad Vishishtam Bhattagarya Karma
Rajovacha Ahovayam Danyatma Anapanam
Nahovayam Danyatamanripanam
Mahatmana Ugrahaniya Shilaha Ragnyam Kulam Brahmana Padasauchad Durad Vishvishtam Bhattagarya Karma
Rajovacha Ahovayam Danyatamanripanam Mahatamanugrahaniya Shilaha Ragyam Kulam Brahmana Padashochad Durad Vishishtam Bhattagarya Karma
Rajovacha Ahovayam Danyatamanripanam Mahatamanugrahaniya Shilaha Ragyam Kulam Brahmana Padashochan Durad Vishishtam Bhattagarya Karma
Any devotees online? Raja Uvacha. The fortunate king said, Aho, Vayam, we, Dhanya Tamaha, most thankful, Nripanam, of all the kings, Mahatama, of the great souls, Anugrahaniya Shilaha, trained to get favors, Ragyam, of the royal, Kulam, orders, Brahmanapada, feet of the Brahmanas, Shochat, refuse after cleaning, or refuse after cleaning. Durat, at a distance. Visrishtam, always left out. Bhata, on account of. Garhya, condemnable. Karma, activities. Translation. The fortunate king said, "Indeed, we are the most grateful of all the kings who are trained to get favors from the great souls. Generally you, sages, consider royalty as refuse to be rejected and left in a distant place." Purport. According to religious principles, stool, urine, wash water, etc. must be left at a long distance. Attached bathrooms, urinals, etc. may be very convenient amenities of modern civilization, but they are ordered to be situated at a distance from residential quarters. That very example is cited herein in relation to the kingly order for those who are progressively marching back to Godhead. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that to be in intimate touch with dollars and cents men, or the kingly order, is worse than suicide for one who desires to go back to Godhead. In other words, the transcendentalists do not generally associate with men who are too enamored by the external beauty of God's creation. By advanced knowledge and spiritual realization, the transcendentalist knows that this beautiful material world is nothing but a shadowy reflection of the reality, the kingdom of God. They are not therefore very much captivated by royal opulence or anything like that. But in the case of Maharaj Parikshit, the situation was different. Apparently, the king was condemned to death by an inexperienced Brahmana boy, but factually he was called by the Lord to return to him. Other transcendentalists, the great sages and mystics who assembled together because of Maharaj Parikshit's fasting unto death, were quite anxious to see him, for he was going back to Godhead. Maharaj Parikshit could also understand that the great sages who assembled there were all kind to his forefathers, the Pandavas, because of their devotional service to the Lord. He therefore felt grateful to the sages for being present there at the last stage of his life, and he felt that it was all due to the greatness of his late forefathers and grandfathers. He felt proud, therefore, that he happened to be the descendant of such great devotees. Such pride for the devotees of the Lord is certainly not equal to the puffed up sense of vanity for material prosperity. The first is reality, whereas the other is false and vain. Rajo vacha aho vayam danyataman nripanam mahatamanugrahaniya shilaha ragyam kulam ramana parashochad durad visrishtam bhatagarya karma. Translation. The fortunate king said, "Indeed, we are the most grateful of all the kings who are trained to get favors from the great souls. Generally you, sages, consider royalty as refuse to be rejected and left in a distant place." So, this analogy is being drawn that for the saintly persons who are on their way back to Godhead, the devotees of the Lord, this kingly order who are dealing with economic development and management of society are to be kept away, just like the bathroom. Of course, for preaching, we kind of do things differently. But in general, such unclean places are to be kept away from the residents. And Maharaj Parikshit is very humble. So he's basically considering his great fortune that actually I'm of that class which should be kept aside by you great saints. But I'm so grateful that actually you are coming to associate with me, or to give me your association at this time of his departure from the world. And so he considers his fortune, and it's nice that Prabhupada brings up the point that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he also considered that it is very dangerous for one to associate with dollars and cents men. And there's the pastime of one of the Lord's associates, King Prataparuja, and he was a great king, but Lord Chaitanya externally refused to meet with him, even though the king was actually a great devotee. And when the time came, then they were able to associate. So in general, such persons who are interested in this material world, they're enamored by the beauty of the external creation of the Lord. And this was described in the 7th chapter, that this is Bhina Prakritir. This is the separated energies, Krishna's separated energies. And this place is Dukhalayam Ashashvatam, and it's always mutable, it's always changing, it's always manifest and unmanifest, this material world. And Krishna says that everything here is emanating from him, and it's all resting on him too. That he is the source of all material and spiritual worlds. And then Krishna describes as well that everything that you see here is actually just a spark of his splendor. Whatever mighty, beautiful creations you can find here, they're all just a spark of his splendor. And Krishna says that those who are too much interested in that type of splendor from this external energy, they never get the resolute determination to serve the Supreme Lord. And such kings, in general, kings are usually such people that are very much enamored with the glamour of the world, gold and wealth and women, things like that. But we can understand from many examples, Maharaj Parikshit, as well as the Pandavas and so many others, when a devotee or when a fortunate soul, whether he's in a king body, a Shudra body, whatever body, when such a person engages in the devotional service of the Lord or comes in contact with the pure devotees, then he can get the higher taste. And so, param drishva nivartate, that this person, even though surrounded with so much wealth and opulence, is actually mad after the pleasure which is derived from devotional service. And one can very easily give up all types of material opulence just for, if it's favorable for his service. If it's not, then that person can retain those things very happily for the Lord's pleasure. But that's the principal point. So there's a great devotee, Yamunacharya, and he was a great king, and he is described to have, as many of the kings of those times did, great wealth, power, ability, or opportunity to enjoy with unlimited women and so many different opulences of the kingly order. And he says, ever since I've been engaged in the, in serving the lotus feet of the Lord, then I'm tasting newer and newer pleasure. Nava Nava Rasa. Then he spits now. He spits at the thought of enjoying in that way as a king with so many beautiful women. And Lord Chaitanya always prays that na janam, na dhanam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kame, mama janmani janmanishvare, bhavatad bhaktira haituki tvai. That I don't want wealth, I don't want followers, I don't want wealth, I don't want to enjoy with beautiful women. I don't even aspire after liberation. I'm interested in your devotional service birth after birth. That's it. So Maharaj Parikshit is also on that level. He got the higher taste, and he comes in a line of great souls, and that type of family lineage is not at all material. So he's been associating with so many great saints his whole life, and he's proud to be part of that association. Though he himself is so extraordinarily qualified as a devotee of the Lord, he thinks himself fortunate to be receiving the association of the saints. And he also sees that actually this association is due to the good merit of my predecessors. And Srila Prabhupada in the introduction to Nectar of Instruction says that, we should never think ourselves big preachers. We should always consider ourselves instrumental to the previous acharyas. Srila Rupa Goswami prays that, hey, I think I'm wholly unqualified, but I'm humbly, my humble desire is that the whole world becomes Krishna conscious. And Srila Prabhupada says this should be the attitude of the preachers of this movement, that we should always think ourselves instrumental to the previous acharyas. And in the Narada Bhakti Sutra, Narada Muni, he mentions a few times about association with great saints. And in the purports to those, the devotees, I think at that point in the book, it's the disciples of Srila Prabhupada are actually giving some purpose, but they're actually describing that that it's very rare to meet such a devotee. Of course, that's described in Srimad Bhagavatam as well as in Bhagavad Gita. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tattvatah. That this person is very rare. So Maharaj Parikshit is such a person, and his forefathers were such people. And so as a devotee with knowledge, he recognizes his forefathers and he feels proud to be associated with them and in their family. But for himself, he thinks that he's worthy of being cast aside by the saints. So those were some comments. Maharaj, did you have anything?
The Mahajans, 12 authorities, some of them are sages and some of them are kings. About half of them are at least householders, grihastas and brahmacharis. Swayambhu, that's Brahma, he was a householder grihasta. Narada, sannyasi, brahmachari, Shiva, householder. So in this way, everyone can become a pure devotee and a great soul. From any position, it doesn't make any difference whether one lives in the forest or lives in a palace. But for the renunciates, they're not supposed to stay around and have a comfortable life around the royal, with the king providing them all the necessities. They're very worried about that, getting attached to the material world. So they want to keep their distance so they don't become allured by that lifestyle.
And we can see that actually it's one of the impediments that we have been associated with enjoying the opposite sex and wealth and things like this since time immemorial here in the material world. So it's not very surprising that we have such a momentum for trying to enjoy those things. But in this Krishna consciousness movement, Srila Prabhupada is teaching us how to properly associate with the opposite sex, as we've been hearing in the Lilamrita, and also how to associate with money, with wealth. It's not completely negated as the so-called strict brahmacharis in the Himalayas or different places. We in this preaching movement, we may not be able to get away from wealth and the opposite sex, but we can learn how to associate properly with such things. But Valmiki Prabhu, he was actually describing that in one sense it's very good that things have a tendency to break, that we're doing so many austerities, because if everything is very nice, then as soon as there's any problem, we say, what is this? We become entitled, we become attached to a certain type of opulence. So we do austerities here, and it's good for us, practicing from our level. So, Dr. Fred?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances and thanks for the nice class. I was wondering if you can reiterate for me personally, how do our forefathers come into this as aspiring devotees, or are they're not necessarily so involved until we pass away?
Prabhupada said, your parents must be very good people to produce devotees. You treated them with great respect. He would often say that. Your parents must be good to good people.
They're getting benefit all the time, and there are good qualities, and they're whatever God consciousness and devotional service or piety that they have done, then that's their credit. And if a devotee is born into, that their womb, their family, then it must be very special. Krishna is arranging for them to receive that benediction. And yes, ultimately, Krishna really wants us to become a pure devotee. And he wants them to become pure devotees too. But it may not happen externally, or may not manifest, this time around for those in our family, but they're still making progress, and they're gaining appreciation for this movement naturally. Because when we perform devotional service, we become pure. When we become pure, divine qualities come from the soul. And when these divine qualities are manifest here in this world, it's very rare to see such qualities. Peacefulness, self-control, equanimity, and so many different qualities are basically, unseen on the planet. So when our parents, when our family members, when our friends, they see that manifest in us, and they see that we're happy and healthy, then they appreciate this movement. And by that appreciation, they actually move quite rapidly towards taking up the practice themselves. And many people in this movement, their family members do take it up. Like Bhaktavatar's father said something about, Krishna must have saved, this person and their family from a car wreck. So he decided to say like that.
What did he say?
So, would you want to explain, Prabhu?
Yeah, my grandfather, stepmother, and father were all driving, and it was in the mountains, and they hit this ice patch and had this horrible, disastrous car wreck, terrible. Car was totaled, but none of that. I was asking about, my dad's like, nothing happened, nobody. Not even broke a bone or anything? He's like, no, not even a scratch. My dad said, no, not even a scratch. And he said, Krishna must have been watching out for us or something. And he's like a devout agnostic, definitely, more atheist, but he doesn't want to consider himself that. But yeah, it's pretty far out that he had that realization.
Yeah. So it's working, as we take it up. One past temple president used to tell me like that. He said, you don't have to preach so hard, to your parents and, try to really convince them philosophically. They're being convinced because you're happy for once. They're being convinced because you're healthy, you're not doing drugs, you're living a very pure lifestyle. You're serving God. You're serving humanity, serving everybody. They can see we're doing something special, something different. So anyway, that's kind of some points. I think we should close now. Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees.